Guys, here's a hopefully quick tutorial on the falling tree assignment. Now we're looking to focus on three things here. One, the falling of the trunk itself, applying easing or slow in and out to that movement, meaning it's going to accelerate. It's going to go faster and faster as it goes down, and gravity takes hold. So it'll start off really gradual and then go faster. Number two, we'll be adding some kind of drag or the overlap follow-through animation principle, meaning that it will kind of drag behind the foliage because it's a softer body, much like an arm or something. As a body falls in space, it's a little bit more loosely attached, or something that drags a little differently from the body. And so the foliage will do the same. The tree will fall, and once the tree hits, the foliage will continue to follow through. For that, we'll be using the new technique of the asset warp tool. And then finally, and we'll also be using, to keep those two layers together, we'll be using the layer parenting. And I'm throwing a lot of new techniques or technical things at you, but if we learn these early on, both of these will help us a lot in getting the kind of animated motions that we want out of this program. So I have the tree set up as a couple of different layers. I have the trunk as one layer, and it's already turned into a symbol. Don't mind that. Let's see. It's going to start out like this, and just be careful. Some of you ran into this trouble in class. When you want to turn it into a classic tween, you got to make sure that everything that you want to move is going to be selected. Even if it's all on the same layer, you got to make sure you select it all. The easiest way to do that is to click on the keyframe itself. And if you do that, you'll get everything on the layer, and you can even right-click on the frame itself. Whoops, that's weird. It's a classic tween. Create classic tween. That's what you want to do, and it will say they can't be tweened unless you turn it into a symbol. And of course, we do want to turn it into a symbol. And what happens there? What happened? My background disappeared. Well, we always have that surprising shock of a moment, but you see that it's given you automatically 1 second of motion. So we're going to have to decide how long this animation is going to be. I'm going to make it 4 seconds, just for the heck of it. And I don't think it's going to add too much to your work to make it longer. It'll just give you more space for the thing to fall, and then it'll give you some time at the end for the tree to come to a rest, and for that follow through or drag of the foliage to really settle down. So I'm selecting all these frames across layers and just saying insert frame. I don't know what I want to do at that point, but I'll just give it room to do that. And I can always play through to see how long that takes. So first off, I can just worry about the movement of the tree trunk before I even bother with the foliage, as we did in class. And as you've noticed, if I try to do something with that tree wherever I haven't keyframed it, it's not going to want to move. But you'll notice if you grab it and tug with a select tool, you can move it, and it will generate a keyframe there. You can, if that is kind of strange process for you, you can always right-click on the frame and convert to keyframe. And once you convert something to a keyframe, remember, you can always move the keyframe around so that whatever happened between here and here can either take longer or shorter, and that's very handy. So clear keyframe, I'm just going to have it fall by, say, 2 seconds. 1, 2, maybe 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'll do that. There's no one right way to do things. I had a student a couple semesters ago do a real, Looney Tunes or stylized version of this fall, and it was happening really fast, but it was done masterfully. The way they accelerated that tree fall and the way it hit the ground and bounced, and everything was just right. So it felt right, so it was right. And that's really the rule of thumb for this. this whole class. And so remember, and one thing I might have to do before I even set the second keyframe up is to move the anchor point. Okay, so I'm going to do my fall with the free transform tool. But I'm going to go back to frame 1 and make sure I set up the position of this anchor point early on, because actually you can animate even the position of the anchor point. We don't want that moving around. So if I forgot to do that early on, look at that, let's see. If I move it to the same place there, is that going to fix my I animated the position of my anchor point. So that means the tree's already moving around. That's annoying. I might want to actually eliminate. Oh, that worked out okay. It's moving a little bit. But if I'm not satisfied with that, I can always just clear my keyframe. Let's do that before I've even made a second keyframe. Okay, move it here. And now I create my keyframe again, 3 seconds. And now it doesn't move at all. So if you do something and it moves in a way that's unexpected or just really confusing, you can always just clear the keyframe out, try again. Okay, let's rotate this thing all the way down, bam. And I also am going to give it, a little bounce at the end. So how long will the bounce take? I don't know, maybe half a second. How about that? Over to keyframe. I'm going to have it rest there again. I'll give it a little bit of time at the end to settle. And then I'm going to keyframe it here and have it kind of go up. Is that too much? Oh, that's a lot, but we'll see. Okay, now let's play it through. Okay, and of course the movement is very steady, robotic feeling. So what I want to focus on here is this fall. And one way I start off doing this, I go like, I want to really make this acceleration dramatic. It's a heavy, heavy tree. So I'm going to go all the way, halfway through my fall, create a keyframe, and I'm just going to move it almost all the way up to the top. And so even now, I have this very slow movement followed by a much faster movement. Not that fast. Look at it auto-saving. I'm going to save my file, by the way. I don't trust the auto-saves to actually rescue me when the time comes. So I wouldn't, if I were you, I would not trust in that. Save regularly. Oops. And I'm gonna cut this one in half too. And I'm going to move that back towards the last keyframe. So now it's moving that much, now it's moving that much. I think that final part will accelerate it even more. I might want to move this. What does that do? It's pretty good. And now I can even want to move this back. And I can turn on this, the onion skins. I'm not sure how instructive it's going to be. That's kind of messy. It's not going to help me with such a, I'm at 30 frames per second. I have a lot of frames. I'm not sure the keyframe or the onion skins are really going to be that instructive for me at this point. So it's already doing it. And I just want to keep, the more I kind of nuance this, or the more I kind of, more smoothly the acceleration is, I think the more effective that illusion of weight will be. And it's the same thing I did with the ball, with easing, at least in effect. It's moving less distance. Animation is about timing and spacing. You give less spacing over an amount of time at the beginning, and more spacing over the same amount of time at the end, and that means it moves faster and faster. And that's really a big part of the consideration for the animator. Okay, and that's still, it's still kind of staccato. Let's see if I can get it. And you can keep playing with this. I'm not going to worry it over much. but I might tweak it at the end. What you don't want to do is overcompensate so that it's like it's going fast and then it slows down or something. If you run into that kind of weirdness, going fast, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down, just eliminate some of your keyframes, clearing the keyframes, and just trying to do it again. You don't want to get it to the point where it's like it feels like it's a it's a car switching gears or something. At the end here, let's see. I'm gonna go slow there. I'm also going to add some easing to the bounce. So let's make it a little bit towards the I feel like that bounce takes a little too long. I'm just going to move this closer. Let's see. Something like that. Not perfect. Maybe I'll work on that a little more. But then, once I get to that point, save it again, and now I can actually add the parenting to the tree foliage. So I click on the tree. I click on this Show Parenting view. This is a very new feature. It seems to be working well. It should work well. It's been late in coming, I think. I've been wanting this in Adobe Animate for years. Okay, so once I click this view, I choose the child. That's my foliage, and the parent will be the one who decides. And as a parent myself, I know that this isn't a seamless relationship, but in this case, it's working out pretty well. So I'm going to drag from the foliage to the trunk, and so I can see this one is the master, and this one is the obedient child. So now, when the parent moves, the foliage moves with it. But now I can also make the foliage do whatever I want it to do. I can make it kind of do loop-de-loops. I can make it kind of spin in place or whatever I want. And with the foliage, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to actually no, I'm not going to do anything of that sort. What I want to do first, I'm going to use the Asset Warp tool on the foliage. So I want to add the pins before I do any tweening of the foliage. So add the pins first and do the tweening after. And it does look like if you add too many colors, too many details, and use this Asset Warp tool, you might run into some trouble. I was hoping it would be a completely stable editing tool as it is in After Effects, but it's not perfect. The software is lurching into the 20th century or the 21st century. They're compensating really well for shortfalls in the workflow. Okay, anyway, not to harp on that. So I'm going to add, as I go forward, I'm now going to add a classic tween to this. Oh, you know what I did wrong? I didn't select my whole object. I'm going to take out the pins. See, I have my object, and then I have these little branches. It's going to mess up my animation. You just want one thing that's moving on a layer. If you have you can have a tween on a layer and then some random drawing bits, but it does unpredictable things. You don't want it. So I'm going to break it apart. Ugh. No. Okay. So that kind of silliness happens. So if that happens, I'm going to lock everything else. I'm going to select what I want up here. And let's see if I can get this stuff back in order. I can also undo a couple times and get back to where I need to be. Okay, let's just... What? Oh, yes. And if you have... Okay, I'm going to take off the parenting by sliding again, doing this. Because I'm parented, it wants to hold me to where I've determined my child wants to be in relation to the parent. You'll get through these little quirks. No, that's not what it should be. I'm moving it in a more controlled way using the arrow keys. I'm not going to worry over this over much. So, okay, whatever. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, let's try it again. I'm going to click on here, get everything on the layer. That's where clicking on the keyframe is really handy. Now, no. Don't create the tween. Asset warp. You can do it. That should have gotten everything, right? Who knows? Put as many pins as you want. Experiment with this. Oh, and now, okay, now I'll just, and I can do that. I should be able to do this in any order. Now I'm going to create the tween, creating it as a classic tween, and now if I move it, everything moves. Good. Now if I parent it, it's a child of this parent, and now it's moving with. Oh, and there's this little extraneous bit. I'm not going to worry about that now. But now I have all my pins. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it start to be affected by the tree movement, say here, over to keyframe, and then once I have it, I have to really convert it as a keyframe before I can start to mess with the puppet pins. You can't just grab it unless you're on a keyframe. So I'm going to just like do a little bit of drag here. You know, I can make it flutter a bit. As it turns out, you don't want to have too much data here, or it does slow down your process a little bit. I was hoping that would not be the case with this tool. So maybe after this assignment we'll discuss other ways of doing this kind of distortion. There is one other handy way to do it. So this is going to slow me down a little bit. But you can also do things. To add the drag and stuff, you can just stick to what's down there? Is there a little piece of drag? You can just stick to the free transform tool primarily. If it's slowing you down a lot, just add some drag with that. I might want to put my anchor point up there so that when I drag, it's sort of dragging from the front. We want it to kind of compress it in the front and drag in the back. And if we can add the more kind of like shudder, tremor you can add to this foliage, the better. And what we want to focus on is like a little bit of, whoa, oh yeah, shouldn't move the anchor point or else it's going to animate the anchor point. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff. And what we want to do, I'm going to fast forward, but we want it to kind of stretch out or drag, kind of like stretch and squash. And then when it hits, we want it to squash. But we also want it to kind of settle and continue moving a bit at the end. And then one more thing we're going to add is another layer with some kind of additional motion. So I'm just going to fast forward through that at this point and then come back to you when I've finished it, which is hopefully not forever. So let's go to the beginning. So here's my completed rendition. Foliage is a little blinky at the first. You can see that I've added a couple things: secondary motion of the leaf and the additional tree limb that's kind of bobbing back and forth, the root that kind of shifts, and a little bit of dirt that falls. You just need to add one piece of secondary action like that. The overlapping or overlapping or follow through action, or aka drag, of the foliage body is okay. I would want to tweak it more. I've used the asset warp. At the end, I compress it so much that when I try to uncompress it, it does weird things. It blinks out of existence. So at the very end, I just kind of gave up and I just deformed it with the free transform tool, which is more stable. If you have trouble with the asset warp tool, my apologies. It's a new tool. It seems to be a little bit more stable than what I have taught in the past for warping things. But there you are. Do your best. If all else fails, use the free transform tool and get it, give it the feeling of drag, and then kind of the compression at the end, and the sort of settling, the movement after the main object, the trunk, has finished. It's just going to kind of settle and like expand back out, or kind of find its original shape a little bit more at the end, as you can see. And what we just want is the feeling of that following through of the softer body attached to the trunk, and the fact that it is soft in relation, and then it has this kind of extra wiggle or movement due to the wind resistance and the acceleration. So there it is. Thanks for watching.